The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God. Welcome in. Well, let's bring ourselves up to speed with the conflict in Iran. Reports today coming out that we have reached a deal to extend the ceasefire. And let's just be clear, the game is going to be extending the ceasefire for as long as possible. That accomplishes two things. Number one, that is in the benefit of Iran. The longer this continues for Iran, the better for them, the worse for the United States. There is probably not a scenario in which a resolution comes. Now, make sure we're clear. Strait of Hormuz and the nuclear materials are the two key issues, right? And those are the two things that Iran holds as significant leverage over the U.S. The U.S. should have known this at the beginning. Of course, they did know this at the beginning. That's why this was always not recommended, President Trump. No new wars, and is certainly not one that you cannot win. Cannot beat Iran at their own game. What's their game? Possession of nuclear material, enriched uranium, and then, of course, their physical geographical positioning on the Strait of Hormuz. We have no capacity, desire to put our harms in way over there, right? You have to put fleets and troops and all these things exposed to drone attack. You know about the mines that they're laying in the sea. We know about the traffic that's being backed up, very few ships coming in and out by permission only. And there isn't really a plan to get that all together. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what's going to be how do we know if we won or not? We leave. We leave under any circumstance, any scenario, at any time. That's how we know if we won. Okay. Winner for the American people. What do the American people want right now? Two, they want relief at the gas pump. $5 a gallon, that's not going to work for anybody. Big picture, we were already dealing with inflation in energy from Joe Biden. Trump spent just a minute getting that work down. And now, of course, we're back to excessive gas, excessive groceries, excessive cost of services. That was not signed up for the American people. There was no mandate given to President Trump. And this is where they're super confused and why the sycophant person is still struggling so much. Is they were told specifically by Donald Trump a couple of things: close the border, deport illegal aliens. We've only deported 250,000 people since the beginning of the conflict. That's not going to work. Okay, that's number one issue. Close the border. The border is 94% closed, so that's very good still. But we need more. We need our wall, right? So we're still working on those things, kind of in the background, though, because what's taking precedent, of course, anything associated with Israel, foreign wars, excessive government spending on things outside of the United States. That is still the priority of the Trump administration, and we feel the effects of that at home. Okay. The second thing that we really asked for, demanded, was we had to have Epstein files and the corruption justice that we know was going on. This is the fraud that we found through USAID and the Elon Musk efforts. And we had all this fraud on the table. There was no action taken. Okay. So that was before the Epstein flub. But then we get to Epstein, and of course, the betrayal that took place, in which Pam Bondi went up there, Kash Patel went up there, and they told us there's no co-conspirators. This is all on the up and up. We're not investigating this anymore. Okay, that was a critical moment in American history because it basically said Republicans could never win again. Right? Republicans can't win again now as a result. They had to be unified. We needed every single one of Donald Trump's fans to remain strong through the midterms. Donald Trump claims he does not care about the midterms, but I don't think he understands what happens to him with a poor showing at the midterms. Let's just look at what happens to Donald Trump. And this was all his doing, mind you. He chose to go to Iran. He chose to continue this game in Ukraine. He won't end it because he could say, we are done. He's not even paying attention to that, though. His world became, what do we have to do to suppress Epstein and those files? War. And that's how we got the war with Iran. Okay. Joe Kent told us, Tulsi Gabbard told us there was no threat coming nuclear wise. Of course, these are not good people. Of course, these are people that are always going to be combative with people like Israel, who are instigating 24/7. That is what they do. Remember, to get to a greater Israel, which is the objective, you cannot have a power like Iran in the way. They need them out of the way. They need them dismantled like Iraq. And so that's what's been the urgency for them to get us involved and to make sure that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, right? And the president continues to say that. But I hope we're picking up on why do they say it like that? Why does he make such a big deal of saying Iran can never have a nuclear weapon? That's their justification for this entire war, even though it's not the reason. We know we went in there because of Israel's demands. But if you ask yourself, Iran having a nuclear weapon, kind of in the list of your day-to-day problems, and this could be money, this could be your job, this could be safety, this could be what your kids are being taught at school. This can be so many elements that are driving fear into the heart of Americans well before anything like Iran having a nuclear weapon. And what they're basically trying to get us to believe is that the day Iran gets a nuclear weapon, they put it all together, they assemble it, they go on a suicide mission that exact same day. The American public, the Fox News MAGA baby boomer Trump sycophant, has been convinced that the day they get that weapon, it comes right over the United States and it kills all of us. That's what they're telling you right now. That's why they have to do this. And I think if it's I think if you sat with yourself for just a few minutes and think about how silly that sounds, you probably are like, wow, maybe that's not my biggest fear in the world. Maybe the fact that my grandchildren will never buy a home. Maybe the fact that our first-time home buyers are 38 years old. Maybe the amount of brokenness in our families, the lack of religion and God and worship in our family, the lack of decent education, the lack of deporting criminals that are here hurting Americans. And Donald Trump, who ran on that, deporting, closing the border, America first, he won't deport them. 250,000 since he took office. That's not going to work. 20 million came in, and we're getting nothing out. Like 1% are leaving. So this is a nothing. This is a terrible effort. And so we have betrayal everywhere we look with this force down your throat war effort. So it's like, how could we get so passionate about something that didn't bother us? I think we have to ask that question. Zionism. That's how we got here. Zionism. And I want to compare a couple of things because, you know, Donald Trump fans, they are so scared of Democrats, and Democrats are a formidable beast. I mean, they are a sick group of people. There is no doubt about that, that you can take a man, put lipstick and a dress on him, and then ask other men, straight men, to accept him as a woman, even though we see nothing compared to a woman coming off of that person that's clearly been confused, clearly been deceived, clearly broken. The response isn't to love that person in their new fake false identity, but to bring what on earth is going on in that person's mind that would make them think like this. Here is this just beast of a man, okay, unattractive man, heavy-set man, hairy man. He puts on lipstick and a dress and has a boob job, and we're supposed to accept his beauty, okay? That's crazy. So Zionism works a lot like that, though on the right, okay? So transgenderism is a delusional thinking that we can change our sexes. And we've rejected that on the right. Most people on the left reject it too. It's just they're so cowardly. They feel like they have to continue. Okay, we're still going with this. And now we're taking transgenders and adults, and we've moved that down to children. And most Democrats are just, they don't have the ethics, the morals, the standards, the guts to say, okay, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. Okay. That's transgenderism. Okay. And it's actually a Jewish philosophy. And you know, people always talk about Hitler and, oh, Hitler, you a Hitler, you a Hitler. Please know a couple of major things that happened by Jewish enthusiasm. Number one, you need to know who Karl Marx is. Of course, you've all heard, and our baby boomers are scared to death of this, Marxism. Marxism. Karl Marx, the father of communism, is a Jewish person. Okay. I don't think that's under debate. Okay. The father of transgenderism. In fact, this was a school in a research center in Germany in the 1900s, our first introduction to transgenderism, also a Jewish person. Okay. So when Hitler saw that invasion and he saw what the Jews had done to Christians in Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution, 30 million dead Christians, he says, you're not bringing that here. And whatever you think of how he chose to get them out of their government, out of their country. But the first things that Hitler did when he came to power, he outlawed two very important things. Number one, pornography. Okay. All the pornography in Germany at the time was Jewish owned businesses. Okay. That's verifiable. Do your own research, Zionist. Okay. And number two, usury, interest. Okay. The Bible says don't do interest. Jewish philosophy says don't charge interest to other Jews, but you can charge interest to the goy, the Gentile, the dogs, you and I. If you're not Jewish, you're a dog in Judaism. Okay. Or at least the way present day, modern day, rabbinic, Talmudic Judaism is practiced in Israel. If you're not Jewish, you're a dog. And even great Gentiles should be killed. Okay. That's Talmudic. Go research that. All the boomers that tell us, I stand with Israel, you're standing with Zionism. So let's talk about Zionism as it relates to transgenderism, sort of the mental misunderstanding that's going on there. Okay. So Zionism is, of course, a political ideology that states, for the most part, the secular nation of Israel can do no wrong. But there's a catch to it. Not only can they do no wrong, but if you were to point out, say, misconduct by the Israeli government, not only are you incorrect, but you're anti-Semitic, because the Jewish person, the Jewish cause is so pure in its just presence that to question it makes you a demon. Right? That's Zionism. Okay. So then let's look at Zionism playing out in Israel, right? Because that's the only country that has this free pass. By the way, all governments are corrupted. Okay. All governments are evil in nature. It's the nature of power. So to suggest that somehow Israel is operating so differently than all these other countries that we deem so bad, North Korea and Russia and China, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Canada, US, could you ever imagine applying that standard to any of those countries? The president of China can do no wrong. President Putin can do no wrong. And if you were to dare oppose President Putin, you're a bad person. You're an anti-Russian. Shame on you. Could you imagine saying that the president of Nigeria can do no wrong? And that if you were to suggest wrongdoing, you're a jerk and you should be punished. You're probably racist, in fact, if you believe that the president of Nigeria is capable of wrongdoing. Starting to see how ridiculous it sounds. How about our own government here in the United States to suggest that they're doing a wonderful job? Let's just pretend that the U.S. government is committed to the American people. They love the American people. The American people are first and foremost in their agendas. Okay, pretending that. Even with that said, is there a chance ever that the United States government may have done a bad thing on our behalf, maybe lied, maybe not told the truth about stuff like 9/11 or the 2020 election or COVID-19, the Wuhan special, all these things? Do you understand that there might have been just one instant in the history of this country in which the United States government was either not telling the truth or intentionally doing a harmful act that went against the interest of the American people? I think we can all agree that probably every government has done a bad thing at some point in their existence. Is that fair to start with? So then let's bring Israel first and foremost in this conversation. So Zionism only applies to them. Okay. And what it says is that the nation state of Israel, meaning this is the fake the government that they put together starting in 1948, they drew lines and they said, this is your territory. And the Jewish people now have a home. Okay. What you have to suggest is that every prime minister, president, leader of Israel has essentially been maybe one of the greatest. He would be the greatest participant in the Bible had they been alive in Bible times, meaning they're not telling any lies. They're not hurting people. They're doing God's will, God's work 24/7. They're like Friar Tuck. Okay. Now, obviously, we can't say that about Israel because we just saw what they got done doing in Gaza, the Palestinians, in which we have 50,000 children killed as a direct result of the Israeli government saying, wipe them out. Anybody want to dispute that? The dispute is this. Yeah, but Hamas, Hamas, look what Hamas has done. Much like 9/11, you need a propellant to get into war. And so what happened on October 7th? Well, the Israeli government allowed terrorists to come over the border and have an assault on their own people for 6 hours before they responded. Israel's a tiny country. The IDF, that country is on lockdown 24/7, but somehow Hamas got in. So what happened? Well, much like you're seeing with Donald Trump right now, in a way to get yourself out of trouble, because again, a lot of our Zionists here in America, they don't actually understand that Benjamin Netanyahu, if there was not a war right now, he would be on trial, approaching conviction and all the punishment associated with corruption and bribery. That's what he's accused of in Israel. Now, President Trump says, no, he's a great man. They don't treat him right. They think he's a great person. President Trump also is braggart about his approval rating in Israel. Okay. He claims he's got a 99% approval rating in Israel. Now, how could that be? How could that be when you have a 35% approval rating in your own country? Well, because the Israeli government has told its people that President Trump is the one we have to push into, lean into. He's the only way to get us victorious in Iran. So it's obviously very important to the government of Israel, but is it important to your average blue-collar MAGA American that Iran never have a nuclear weapon, as it is maybe, say, as important to the Israeli government, who knows they want to do misconduct? I mean, the reason that Israel, as we approach yet another ceasefire agreement, continues to bomb Lebanon is their pursuit of Hezbollah now. So now, as we're entering peace negotiations with Iran, what's Israel doing? They're destroying Beirut. They're destroying Christian cities in Lebanon. Lebanon's about 35% Christian, has a Christian president, and used to be majority Christian, okay? And so while we're over here celebrating Israel, they are killing Christians in Lebanon. So then that person that says, I stand with Israel, what on earth are you standing with? Do you have any idea what you're standing with? You sound like a fool, because what you're standing with, slaughter of children, hatred towards Christians, and now a pursuit to go deeper into the Levant and take more territory. Do you support that with your dollars? That's what's so hilarious is people pay taxes every year on everything they do. And they're actually okay with that money out of their pocket going 6,000 miles away to kill brown children. That's your MAGA baby boomer. And it's because of fear, right? So it's a very scared generation. It's a privileged generation. Remember, this is the generation that was allowed to buy, say, an $80,000 house and 30 years later flip it for 8x, right? That's the baby boomer generation. They came up with all this stuff. The biggest thing they came up with, though, the baby boomer, war was in their DNA, right? They're the children of World War II, brave soldiers, machinists, factory workers, all of those things. These are the children. They also then experienced Vietnam. And when we went to Kuwait and 9/11, so our baby boomers who are currently 62 to 80, they were right in it. 9/11 was their COVID, and they failed that test miserably. Why? Nothing that happened during 9/11 could possibly be true. That a guy in a cave in Afghanistan took out 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York City, and they all fell demolition style. Our baby boomer didn't even blink an eye. What'd they say? Go get those terrorists. I don't care what it costs. I don't care that the Patriot Act is going to surveil me and entrap me and spy on me. I'm so freaking scared of anything Arab, anything Muslim, anything at all. Take it all. Just deal with them. And what did that weak, cowardly decision and lack of pushback give? Well, it provided a 20-year war between Iraq and Afghanistan, $2 trillion and thousands of soldiers, okay? And a bigger mess in the Middle East than, of course, when we got there. Afghanistan is the most undesirable country in the world, and we thought somehow we were going to fix it, rescue it, get it a democracy and all this stuff. And none of that is true. None of that is possible. None of that has anything to do with America. And it sounds cold-hearted, but it's the truth. What goes on in Afghanistan has nothing to do with the day-to-day affairs of America. But we invested a ton of money and time and lives there and got literally nothing out of it. Make sure we understand the United States went there for 20 years to replace the Taliban. And when they left, they ceded control to the Taliban. So baby boomers failed that one miserably. What else did they fail? COVID-19, Wuhan 19, the Chinese special as it was advertised. But that was a bioweapon engineered here in America at the North Carolina lab and then shipped to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, in which they magically had a vaccine that was safe and effective ready in 9 months, less than. Okay. And our baby boomers, they bought that one up too. And they're not blinking an eye. And they're taking vaccines, and President Trump told them it was good for them. President Trump has never recanted once for Operation Warp Speed. We know the damage it caused people, and there's been no repentance. So how can we expect somebody that would deploy COVID-19 vaccines on its people to then also then do the right thing when it comes to the Epstein files? Okay. So we're talking about the connection, and I would call it the mental illness on the left and the right. On the left, the mental illness is transgenderism. Okay. Completely wicked, completely mentally ill to subscribe that this disgusting man with lipstick and a bra is a beautiful woman. It's crazy. Equally crazy is Zionism, the idea that all governments are corrupted and bad except for Israel's. And anything that Israel does is good for the United States, but it's also holy, it's righteous, it's designed to move the needle for good for the world. That is also as ludicrous. So why would Israel, whose prime minister is currently on a suspended trial for corruption and bribery, how could you suggest that their government is incapable of doing wrong? Why would you even think that? Why would you think that any government in the world is beyond being checked hard? Why would you think that? And it's because you've been programmed, been brainwashed, you've been beat in with fear, and then now you don't know where to look. Because see, if you were to say now, well, hold on a second, I don't know that I am cool with the killing of brown children. Hold on a second. It doesn't make sense that governments are wicked by nature, but yet Israel's is pure and divine. So just stop there. Compare it to transgenderism. Well, hold on a second. You're born a man and you have male parts and all the male characteristics. But yet if you do a sex change and wear lipstick, you're a beautiful woman. You're a beautiful thing again. And you're not ill. You've come into your own identity. That's the same justification that the Zionists use. Yeah, but these are brown children. Of course we can kill them. Their parents are terrorists. So if we don't kill them, they're going to be terrorists. That's the Zionist thinking. Okay. And it's not playing well, and it's not going to go well. So the war, as it stands right now, entering another round of ceasefire negotiations, because we can't have a peace deal. As we get closer to peace, Israel is getting increasingly more violent. And that's why they've pursued Lebanon, and they're not going to stop. I hope you understand that. The moment the war stops for Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu has to go on trial and face accountability. And he'll be found guilty. People act like Israel is a unified nation. It's a divided nation too. They very much know that Bibi is not serving the Israeli people's interests, and it has nothing to do with Judaism. You can love your Jewish brother and say the government of Israel is a wicked beast and it should be taken out. Regime change, Israel. That's actually what we're asking for. We're asking for a regime change in Israel. And maybe, just maybe, the violence takes a breather. We slow down on the aggression, possibly, but we have no problem taking out leaders all over this world. Why is Israel never on the table for a regime change? He's been here, Bibi's been here, what, 7, 8 times in a calendar year? And we know that they've already confessed that this is Israel's war, that they were going to attack Iran. And so if we don't intercede, they're going to retaliate. We might be behind on the war. So stop now. Okay. You're paying more at the pump. You're paying more at the grocery store. You're going to pay more for everything you do while we have an active war and oil too high. Oil's coming off today. Oil's coming down today because we have a ceasefire. But please know, the only way this ends is annihilation of Iran, or the U.S. admits defeat and hightails it back to the mainland and say, what were we thinking? That was bad advice. You know, if President Trump could get off of this pride that he's on. And I don't think he can. I think he would have to have an encounter with the Holy Spirit. Remember, our prayer for this country is that President Trump becomes a Christian in the White House, and let that absolutely roar. Let that feeling roar. But he's not a Christian. And that's why we find ourselves in this position where we have deceit at the high level. We have death. The spirit of death is amongst us, right? Only thing we're hearing in America, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, implying we will do whatever it takes. Don't care how long it takes. Don't care what it costs. We're going to make sure they never have a nuclear weapon, even though I've never lost one night of sleep to that. So the problem is going to be, and unfortunately, this is what you get when you enter a war that you had no business being involved in. Number one, we can't leave as the victors in this situation, because even if you wipe out 92 million, that's not going to be celebrated here at home. That would probably verifiably say they won't have a nuclear weapon because the country doesn't exist. It's in ruins, right? That's number one. Number two, our partner in this thing, Israel, remember, our greatest ally, such a good little sweetheart. Even if peace was on our tongue, peace was in our heart, they're not going to allow that. They can't allow this. Again, why are we in war? Well, basically because the leaders of two countries, President Trump and Bibi, are doing everything in their power to distract or potentially eliminate threats to themselves from a legal perspective. Donald Trump, the reason we don't have the other 3 million files is because it's going to show you demonstrably that he was involved in Epstein crimes. No doubt about it. That's why we can't have them. Okay. We already have enough names, Les Wexner, just Staley. There's a Middle Eastern billionaire where we have their names and their emails, and we can say, hey, we need to talk to you. What did you mean when you asked Jeff Epstein if he tortured this child? What did you mean when you said eating babies was better than cream cheese? What did you mean? Right. And we're not even having those conversations. And acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is a joke of a human being. The fact that that's not being called out is literally just because our baby boomer MAGA sycophants won't wake up that they have been betrayed. You've been betrayed like you could have never imagined. And they say, well, President Trump is still better than Joe Biden. How? What about inflation? Can you tell a difference between your cost of living right now under President Biden and President Trump? I can tell you right now, for me, it's a more expensive lifestyle under President Trump than it is President Biden. And they'll say, oh, but the tax cuts. Oh, but the average American, he's paying like nothing in tax. That's not true. That's not true, because when you have a big, beautiful bill like we saw, okay, that encourages more government spending and a tax cut, we get a deficit. And how do we make up for that deficit? We print money, devalue the dollar, increase inflation. That's inflation, increase in the money supply and credit. Okay. And that's what a government deficit always does. So yeah, tax cut, you won't ever feel it because your cost of living is going to kill that one-time tax refund that you got. You know, let's just do some quick math. If you're paying $2 a gallon more and you're driving, let's say 30 gallons a month, maybe. Is that fair? 30 gallons a month times $2, that's 60. Right there alone, you're $800 a year more in gas. Did you get a $2,000 refund? Great, you netted $1,200. Okay, you're going to get that every year. Now your grocery bill that was $400 a month is $480. What's 80 times 12? Well, now we've got another. Your tax refund's gone. Why? Cost of living went up. Why? War, government deficits. Doesn't make any sense, though. We need tax cut. We need relief. We need tax cuts and a lower cost of living. They have to come together. I can pay no taxes, but if gas is $10, if groceries are $1,000 a month for a family of four, you're right. There is no taxes, but there's no money left over either. You've made our cost of living so expensive. Doesn't matter. We can't see anything getting better. We can't save. We can't put away for college. We can't invest. We can't do any of that stuff because the government has said, we're going to stretch your dollar as far as we can make it, but it's still not going to be comfortable. You're still not going to be comfortable in America. And we haven't even seen mass layoffs. I mean, we're in a recession, kind of muddied up by a high stock market. We've had gold. We've had energy. We've had things that, this is a blowing and going economy, right? It's not at all. It's not at all. About 20 stocks in the US make up all these gains. If you're not involved in those 20 stocks, there is no gains to be had. These are fake numbers in the market, but it feels good today. And we'll kick the can down the curb and we'll pick this up tomorrow if there's something we need to address. So we have Zionism on the right, we have transgenderism on the left. Both are mental illnesses. Both are lying to yourself. Let's say it like that. Okay. You can love a Jewish person and you can say that government's wicked. You can love the United States and say its government is absolutely corrupted. Am I a bad person? I feel like if I say that about the US, I'm okay. If I say that about Israel, I'm a bad person, or could be attacked, or could be hurt, could be harmed. You question the president of the Jewish nation? Absolutely, I did. And you should be too, because they're taking your money, giving it to them, taking your sons and daughters and saying, expose them. For what? I still don't understand what we're getting out of Israel. They'll say intelligence, but doesn't look good. Their intelligence said Iran's going to have a nuclear weapon any day. Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard, NSA, they said that's not on the radar. And then supposedly we destroyed their nuclear ambitions last July, but here we are back again. So we know it's not about the nuclear. It's all about Epstein. Always about Epstein. The only issue in America that matters is the criminal prosecution of each and every Epstein offender. And that includes Donald Trump. These people do need to be publicly hanged for what they did against children. Now, how do you get there? Give us the remaining 3 million files. Give us not Todd Blanche, okay, but this is independent counsel that just reads basic evidence. This is not complex. These are pretty clear. They were out in the open with it. They thought they were being cute talking code. It's not cute. And we do understand what your code means. We understand what pizza and hot dogs and jerky and all that stuff is referencing. It's bravo if you thought you got away with it. But we now see it, and we see it in context of, hey, we're having a party. Hey, here's the follow-up email. Hey, I really loved the party. Did you torture the girl? Okay. Ooh, did I kill her? Ooh. Those are conversations, words that you cannot excuse away. I was talking about, did you torture the dog? No, that's not going to work. Did you torture the butterfly? No, you're talking about children. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein, maybe the greatest pedophile ring you've ever seen, from a covert and who it involved. You've never seen this high a level people involved in a sex trafficking ring anywhere in the world, anywhere, anytime. Billionaires, high level government officials, and people that you would probably say they're doing a good job, right? No, they're in the Epstein files. They're in the Epstein files. Don't matter if they're a CEO or a Harvard professor or a Jewish person. Believe it or not, you've got Jewish people in the Epstein files. Believe it or not, and I know Jewish people have never done a wrong thing in their life, Jeff Epstein was Jewish. Go figure. Howard Lutnick, who lied to us about his relationship with Jeff Epstein, guess what religion he practices? There's some, Les Wexner, the billionaire CEO, Victoria's Secret, right hands right there with Jeff Epstein. Another Jewish person. Okay, well, hold on a second now. We're starting to get a theme going here, but we can't question them. See the problem? Got Jewish conduct involved, but we can't criticize the Jew, and we certainly can't go after the Jewish person. Why? Why? That's Zionism. It's a mental illness, just like transgenderism. The fact that Israel can do no wrong, or a person with Jewish DNA can do no wrong, is as mentally ill as believing some big, fat, hairy slob man can take hormones and lipstick and he's a beautiful woman. You tell me which sounds crazier. I think they're both repulsive, and they both are the microphones from both parties. This is what we're all about. And this is what we're all about. And the American people are saying, none of that makes sense to me. None of it is what I want. When are you going to get back to inflation? When are you going to get back to the deportations? When are you going to get back to education? When are you going to get back to the lawlessness that takes place in this country? You know, President Trump was, he had a bullseye on him from literally every single person on the Democrat side during his first term, and then, of course, after the fake 2020 election. Okay, we never dealt with that either. And isn't it interesting, the SAVE Act that would get rid of mail-in voting? Isn't that interesting? That's not even on the table anymore. Certainly wasn't on the table in Kentucky with Thomas Massey's fake election too, in which Ed Gowring, a person nobody's ever heard of, got mega support and money and destroyed Thomas Massey. Thomas Massey was a 14-year congressman. Thomas Massey had been dominating every election he was involved in until this one. What was the difference this one? Jewish interests got involved. You think, well, gosh, I wonder if there's a big Jewish problem in Kentucky that needs the Jewish powers to really come in and help. Maybe they're being persecuted in Kentucky. Is it possible that the Jewish person doesn't feel free to worship in Kentucky and that this is somehow related to Thomas Massey and that we must get him out for Jewish freedom? No, not at all. Thomas Massey is the author, and the only reason we have the Epstein files. Okay, you understand that. You take Thomas Massey out. Let's say Thomas Massey was as cowardly as every other Republican in Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Thomas Massey. All the other Republicans, gutless cowards. Had Thomas Massey been just as gutless, just as cowardly, just as pathetic as all of our other Republicans, you understand we wouldn't even be seeing the 3 million Epstein files that we do have. You understand that, right? That President Trump was so accepting, was so comfortable with never dealing with, never releasing, never prosecuting the Epstein people, that it was going to come from nowhere other than inspired Congress people that says, hold on a second, I've read the files. This guy raped a kid and we're not doing anything about it. What is going on here? Okay, that's Thomas Massey. What does every other Republican do? They look the other way and they say, we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Okay. It's pathetic. It sounds pathetic. When I hear President Trump and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and Lindsey Graham and all these cowards sit there, top of mind, only issue in America is Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Are you out of your mind? Are you nuts? They're not nuts. They're Zionists. See? So remember, baby boomers who were so upset, they were so devastated during the Joe Biden years. They were so scared of Democrats, the open border, the transgender, the DEI, all of these things, crazy stuff, right? That they didn't like. The intentional, willful obstruction of the prosecution of the men in the Epstein files, they're perfectly acceptable with. You're telling me that person has any credibility? You don't like transgender men, but you're okay with government officials raping children? Why? Because it's heterosexual rape? Why? I don't understand how you're good with one and not the other. You reject both because you're for decency, you're for God, you're for honesty, you're for the purity of children. That's what you should be about, but you're not. You're the same as the Democrat. It's just your mental illness is in the form of Zionism. Theirs is in the form of transgenderism. See the problem? We cannot be led by mentally ill, demonic people anymore. So we completely reject all candidates that say, I stand with Israel or dual citizens with Israel. We have to reject those people. Why? They're not trustworthy. Because when it comes time to fight for the American people, they flinch and they check with Israel. And Israel's interests are never going to be aligned with the American people. Okay? They're lying to you when you somehow believe what's good for Israel is good for us. It's not true. We have nothing to do with them. You understand that? And let's strip it down. The only thing that you would maybe try to connect these two countries with is God, Judaism, and Christianity. So let's discuss that real quick. Judaism, okay? And modern Judaism in Israel today is rabbinic Talmudic Judaism, okay? They read the Torah, the Talmud, they stop right there. They don't acknowledge Daniel. They don't acknowledge Isaiah and these people. They acknowledge the Torah that places a lot of rights to land and rules. This is how you set up your government. This is Deuteronomy. These are all the things that and they stopped right there. Okay. So if you're an American Christian, you know that's incomplete theology. You can't stop before you even get into Joshua. You can't do that. So what do we do as Christians? Well, we read the whole thing, and then the New Testament starts, the Gospels, the book of Matthew, and we get Jesus here, born of a virgin, okay, taught, died, rose, changed the world forever, okay? That's Christians. What does the Jew believe about Jesus Christ? Well, they're the ones that said he must die. He is an apostate. He is a heretic. He is a blasphemer. This is Jewish people's Pharisees saying this about Jesus. Okay. So that should be a conflict for you right there. Just out of the gate. I love Jesus Christ, and they're saying he's burning in hell as an idolater, as a blasphemer. Okay. That should give you pause right there. But continue. Okay. Continue. The Talmud, it gives us 8 sexual orientations. Okay. This is where transgenderism comes from. It's a Jewish thing. Okay. It's a demonic. And when Christ talks about the synagogue of Satan, this is that group of people he's talking about. I believe that there's some fantastic Jews out there, although they're lost, although they're following a demon, they don't actually have a hate for Christ in their heart. They have a love for God and the Old Testament, the Old Covenant in their heart. I believe there are those kind of Jews. But the Jews that are causing so many problems in America and on the globe believe that Jesus Christ is burning in hell, that his mother was a whore, and that you are an idolater for following him. Okay, that's Jewish present day thinking. Okay, if you think Bibi Netanyahu has an ounce of respect for Jesus Christ, you are kidding yourself. He knows exactly what he thinks of Jesus Christ, that he's burning in hell in excrement, in dog crap. Okay. That's terribly hard to get past as a Christian. Just like as if a Buddhist person told me, your God's fake, Buddha is the real deal. That's just as offensive, right? It'd be really offensive if the Buddhist nation, Bahrain maybe, said, oh, no. And now you will send your sons and daughters over here to die in the name of Buddha. And that's what we're being asked to do, to free the suppressed and the poor and the victimized Jewish person. We have to send our sons and daughters and our resources over there, knowing that they don't believe in your God, that they think your God is like a scumbag, like David Koresh, or think about Joseph Smith. Think about all these people that have come to said, I'm Jesus Christ. I'm the Messiah. I'm the one to follow. There's only been the one. There wasn't one before, and there hasn't been one since, and there won't be any others. The only thing you can anticipate as in the bag is that Jesus Christ will return one day. And for the Jewish person, it'll be too late, because remember this, John 14:6, it tells us so clearly, and I love this about the Bible. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, the life. There is no other way to the Father except through me, including Jewish people. Okay. So how does a Jewish person get to heaven? You can have Jewish blood, Jewish DNA, Jewish history and roots and all of that. So that's wonderful. The Jewish person gets into heaven by saying, I declare Jesus Christ, the Son of God, that came here, lived, taught, and died on a cross for my sins so that I could have eternal salvation. Okay. The Jewish person believes that. The Jewish person is going to be with you in heaven. The Jewish person that rejects that, though, they spend eternity separated from God. That's hell. Okay. So if you love your Jewish brother and you love the nation of Israel, as a baby boomer here in America, a Zionist here in America, the only thing you're interested in, salvation for the Jewish persons. So you're evangelizing the Jewish nation. Your only thinking is this bringing them closer to Jesus? Is this bringing them closer to repentance? Okay. So the Jewish person must hit his knees and accept Jesus Christ or face eternal consequences. Your Jewish blood doesn't get you into heaven. Scripture is clear on that. And I know that was taught to so many people, Schofield Bible teaching, Zionist pastoral teaching, that if you have Jewish blood, you get into heaven. You're special. You're in a different crowd. And it's just not scriptural, folks. I'm so sorry. But you're fighting on behalf of a people that oppose your God. If you're a Christian in America, and if you're not a Christian in America, this is the other catch, because you don't know what you're doing, right? So you're not a Christian in America, and you support Israel. What's your link? What's your link to them? If it's not rooted in your deep love for the Bible, what is the connecting factor? And there isn't one. It's just been attached to the Republican cause, the conservative movement. What do? We lower taxes, we protect gun rights, and we stand with Israel. That's the motto. So you're not a Christian, you're not practicing, but you're supporting Israel. And now you're starting to think, what am I supporting again? What am I paying for again? You have no connection to them. And that's how it should be. You have nothing to do with the Jewish people. The average American right now, what are you doing? Okay. What are you doing taking this kind of bait? Because as they tell you war in Iran is good for all of us, and the protection of pedophilia and the protection of known criminals and the transferring of prisons for Ghislaine Maxwell is good, you might be more lost than the person celebrating transgenderism. See, at least with transgender people, you know they're godless, so they're so lost. You know they're godless, so they're so susceptible to demonic teaching. And mostly what you find is that a party built like the Democrats, it's whatever the flavor of the week is, right? Remember, it's been climate change, homosexuality, DEI. It's always changing. And so for that lost person that idolizes government on the left, it's hard to blame them because they're not thinking for themselves. They're being operated through by a demonic force. And then the leaders of that group are like, this is fantastic. We don't have to really commit to anything. We just have to keep this scared, lost, broken person always knowing Republicans are bad and we're here because we love people. Okay. So that's been a lie they've been told. For the conservative person that's found themselves in mental illness like Zionism, what is your excuse? Because Republicans have always been thought of as deeper thinkers, more country first, constitutional, always thinking about this is the party you would elect if you wanted to get back to that 1950s America. Wife, kids, white picket fence, dad goes to work for 30 years, mom stays home, homeschools, you retire, you have a great life. You've never felt like Democrats could bring you closer to something like that, even though I think we all crave that. I don't think any mother out there that has to work is craving more hours at the job. She's craving more time with her kids. She's craving more time for her own worship and development and to be a better woman. Not, can I write more articles for my boss? Can I get some more paperwork filed for this corporation? I don't think any woman is craving more hours, more expectations at work. Maybe you do. I'm not running into very many of those women. I'm running into women that want to get married. They want to have children. They want to take care of their household. They want to be involved in community. They want to do things that are of God, of goodness, and not of this world, not of corporate America and serving somebody else who is not following God. It's crazy to me that they've spun that into women's. This is actually what's better for you. Drop your kids off at wherever and get your butt to work. This is good for you. Okay. That's disgusting. So Republicans have always been thought of, well, this is the party that would restore that, right? They've got God in the platform. Democrats have taken God. There's not a mention of God in the Democrat platform. Okay. They've ejected them. Republicans still pretend that they like God, that they serve God, that they're aware of God, that they have the fear of God. They pretend that. But we're seeing in lifetime, real time, that these are not Christians. Of course, Donald Trump is not a Christian. He himself said he's not getting into heaven. And without repentance and a turn to Christ, he is correct. He will also spend eternity separated from God. I wonder how all these Zionist boomers that say God chose Donald Trump, right? And he's been anointed and he's been empowered to lead us. I wonder what God is thinking about Donald Trump's conduct around the Epstein files. I'm wondering what God thinks about Donald Trump's response to Thomas Massie, but yet not really have a problem with Hillary Clinton, not really seem to want to go after political enemies that tried to take everything from him. I wonder what God thinks about the ongoing abuse of our children and the leaders that are tasked with protecting them looking the other way. I wonder what God's opinion is of that. See, the boomer doesn't stop ever to think, he's not following God, but I like what he's saying he's going to do. Let me stay focused on, is this serving God? Is this honoring? Or is this now secular, worldly? Now we're approaching demonic conduct. So baby boomer that believes in God, question is this: is the intentional obstruction of the Epstein files honoring to God or dishonoring to God? Just ask yourself. Is the attack of Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, are those attacks honoring or dishonoring to God? I just ask yourself, what is honoring behavior? Is the insider trading and the continuous involvement in the stock markets and the pushing of stocks by Donald Trump. I mean, it's active. You can see this too. The stocks he's picking, he's promoting, so he's enriching himself. Ask yourself, is that honoring conduct or dishonoring conduct to God? You have to ask yourself for that, because baby boomer said Nancy Pelosi shouldn't be able to insider trade. This is wrong. This is bad. Donald Trump is doing that right now. His sons are doing that right now. Insider trading. And I don't think they have any shame about it at all. I think they feel entitled to it. Look at what the Democrats did to us. They tried to take everything. So now we're taking it back. Is that honoring or dishonoring? Does that make them the same or better people than the Democrats? So don't confuse yourself, baby boomer. As you look to the left and say DEI is a joke, transgenderism is a joke, open borders are a joke, you might be right, and you'd have credibility, but you have to remember too, Zionism is a joke. Okay, and it puts you in the same category of, you really believe that a nation run by people is incapable of doing wrong? You're suggesting that Israel has never been the culprit in any of this stuff? You're suggesting that of all the wicked governments in the world, Israel is the one that doesn't break the rules. Again, that's as hard to believe as a man putting on lipstick and becoming a woman. So you do have to sit with yourself, because as you contemplate this, we have a further erosion in our country. You have erosion at your pocketbook. You have erosion in the education system. You have an erosion. The corruption is only growing. Okay. Foreign influence is only growing. What we've seen is, if you pay Donald Trump, he will do things for you. There is no doubt about that. That doesn't make him any different than any of the other politicians. But the reason he had the greatest fan base of all time in any political element is because he was different. He didn't need their money. He didn't need their flattery. He was a bulldog set on the America First agenda, and you bought that. And I don't know how else to say this to you, myself included. You got played. You got played hard. Now it's that really tough thing in life, because one of the hardest things to do in life is to accept and realize when you've been lied to, when you've fallen for it. It's really hard. It's pride. So most people's pride doesn't allow them to say, gosh, how did I let myself get so far off track? I'm just so grateful to know the truth though now. Lord, forgive me. Okay. We're not there yet as Americans. That flesh, that pride is holding on tight to this thing. And until we say, hold on, light bulb just went off, no longer in our best interest, get out of the war. We no longer support you. Consequences are going to start right now. 30 million fans that Donald Trump has left. If that message can get communicated to him, nations can change. Things can change. Peace can break out. Corruption can be eroded. The perverts in the Epstein files will get justice, but it comes from the baby boomers saying, I don't want war. I want my kids to be able to buy a house. I want my grandkids to be able to buy a house, start a family. I don't care about destroying the Middle East anymore. I'm off that. Okay. Because as our baby boomers get older, maybe you're only 62 now and you still think you're hot and in the game. You're not, but you still think that way. Flash forward 10, 15 years, you're in your mid 70s as a baby boomer. You still have blood on your thirst. Are you still just passionate about war? Are you in your 70s even? Why? This isn't your war. You can't afford it. Baby boomers on a fixed income, Social Security, Medicare, you can't afford wars. You don't have it in the income. You don't have it in your budget. Okay. Remember, you told us you're on a fixed income and you're celebrating something that eats away at that fixed income. Okay. And you want to call transgender people mentally ill? Zionists are mentally ill. Okay. So we have big things coming up still. This ceasefire cannot last. It's not going to work. Donald Trump doesn't want to have to blow up Iran. He is in probably one of the most uncomfortable positions a person could find themselves in. Forced into a war that has no benefit to the U.S., 0.0. It has high cost, and it has high potential cost for lives and ongoing investment into this war. Meaning you could leave today and it's over. You wasted a ton of money. We lost 13 folks. We've disrupted and made an even greater enemy. That's what other thing I don't understand either. Iran has supposedly been cheering death to America for all these years. We go in here and do this. Do you think this made them closer, more friendly, or do you think it made a cemented the feeling of America's bad? Hard to say if they're going to like us more after this or less after this. But I'll let the baby boomer, who seems to really have this issue as number one, they can't sleep at night. You have to make that decision. You have to say, is it worth it? And if it's not worth it, tell your president, tell your congressman, tell your senator, we want out. Can you pass along my disgust to Washington, D.C.? We want out. But we're not close to that yet. We need a little bit more pain. Next pain comes, more bombs drop. Now escalation happens, gas at 6, gas at 7. Ooh, boy, that grocery bill's ticking up again. You still want that war? Are you still so concerned that Iran may have a nuclear weapon? I think you're back. I think you got it mixed up. I think you're thinking that somehow Zionism and transgenderism are different, and they're the same. So, folks, do this until next time. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.